Welcome to Model Horse Tack School. My name is Carrie, and today we're going to do pants. Now, specifically blue jeans, but this pattern you can use for any pants, except for maybe jod hoppers. It's very simple. It's stripped down as far down as I could get it, because every time you have a seam, you've got 4 layers of fabric, and that is bad. We don't want 4 layers of fabric too thick. Now what you could do if you want totally detailed jeans is you can like sew a line down the center leg here in a gold thread. So you get gold stitching. If you want, you can do like a double needle and get double lines. I'm not going to go that far with the details. I just want to show you how to fit this. And we're going to fit a boy and a girl 6-inch, a girl 7-inch using the 8-inch pattern, and a boy and a girl 8-inch. So you can see the different fits, because fitting the pants is really important. You will probably want to join a group to discuss your progress and to learn stuff about fabric and fittings and all sorts of cool stuff. You're going to want to join a group that can help critique your work, and nicely. And I belong to a Facebook group called the Little Rider Doll Making Challenge. Now the challenge is only once a year, but all year long you can show your projects. They can give you a critique. What I did find at Walmart was denim. Now denim is, this is kind of thick because it's got that stretchy stuff to it, but that's what they had, and that's what I started with because that's what I could find. You can use this. It's a little thick, especially when you're talking about seams. And when you do a seam, right, we sew along here, and then that gives you actually 4 layers of fabric at the seam, right? So it really needs to be thinner than denim. And of course denim comes in multiple colors of blue and even black, and I think you can find it in white as well. But that's an idea if you want to get started. I found this duck cloth, and I'll probably use this for saddle blankets now because it'll make some really nice fringe, maybe even vests. But again, it's a little thick. So it was a ducked broadcloth. And it can get you kind of like that washed denim look, but I'm not going to use this for pants, but I just want to show you that just because it's the color of denim doesn't mean it's the right fabric, because it's too thick. That's why it's better to actually go to a store to look at it. Oh yeah, it's also too stiff. See how stiff that is? And you want clothes to look like gravity is acting on them. It's one of the biggest issues with miniatures is gravity. You want gravity to act on it. Now this is called chambray, C-H-A-M-B-R-A-Y, and that's what was recommended for denim. Now the only color I could find was this. So it's not a very dark denim, but this is what I want to use, because see how much thinner. I suppose I should bring the denim over. So you can look at the end of this denim. Like I said, you can use denim. It's just better to find something that looks like denim that isn't. So if you look, that makes a difference. There's really, you know, we're talking about like a 1/2 millimeter and then a millimeter. So it's not a lot, but it makes a difference when you do your seams. Make sure you iron your fabric flat and then fray check all of your edges and let that fray check dry. Okay, first step in fitting is determining where you want your waist. So if you want grandpa style, you can do that. And then, you know, you got your right on the hips or on the waist, or you got on the hips. So you can determine your fashion right here, which of the 3 you want. And so that's why there's extra on the waist. So once you determine where you want it, And I'm going to put his right, I'm going to put him right on the hips, right there. And just to make sure it's even, I'll take the same amount off of both sides because I'm just going to cut it and then I'm going to redo the free check. And same thing down here at the bottom. This is going to be about right for boots because then you're going to put the boots on. So for right now, I'm going to leave that length. I'm not going to change it. And that is how you would fit the first fitting for the guy. Now we still have to fit the waist, but because I'm putting this right on the hips, I can do the dart here in the front. So when I sew the front part, I can sew it at a diagonal to tighten it up. So you want to get your length right, and I like the length. I'm gonna put the fly in the back, okay, because he's gonna wear chaps and he'll be sitting on his butt, and these will be permanent, so it'll be glued shut. I'm not gonna sew anything over, so we do the fray check, so I don't have to add bulk. And we're cutting this off. We're not going to sew it over because there's just way too much bulk. Now, if you wanted to, you could have the fly in the front and you can do your fake stitch for the fly. Or you can do it in the front after everything's sewn. You'd have to hand sew it. And then this is where you would make your blue jeans line in gold if that is what you want. Now, if he's going to wear chaps, you won't see it really. So I'm not going to do all that detail. I just want to show you how to assemble the pants, and then you can make your imagination go wild. And as you can sew on pockets if you want, all of that fun stuff. But let's get the pants done so they fit. And then you can start imagining all the fun stuff you can do with it. Okay, so I put some pencil marks right there in the fold on both sides. So I know where it is that I want to do the trim. Pull out the needle. Yeah, ignore that other line. That was a mistake. Go ahead and draw your line so you can get a nice straight cut. You can cut it off, and then you're going to take the other pair or the other side, and you're going to match right or wrong sides together here so that we can take off exactly the same amount on the other pair of pants. There we go. And I just go ahead and double check and make sure that I got it right. Now's the time to do that. Okay, so now that we have the waistband and pretty much the leg fit, let's talk about the width of the pants. Now up here, it's going to be a nice little, little seam, which is what we want. We want a tiny seam. And then I have to determine if I want to go straight cut, which is just straight down. If I want to do more of a boot cut, which comes in a little bit, or if I want to do a straight leg so that the pants will go into the boots. Once I've determined where I want that to go, I'm going to go ahead and mark this with a pencil because I need to go ahead and draw a line. It's a seam line, not a cut line. So I'm going to go ahead and just mark the end of the pants and right there by the thigh, by the crotch. And we're going to draw a line. Like I said, this is my seam line. This is where I'm going to sew. Now I'm using a machine. You guys can hand sew if you want. If you hand sew, use one thread. Don't double your thread because you want to reduce the bulk if you can. Now, to be careful to make sure you don't go too far, you want to be about a 1/4 inch from that curve. That curve is kind of like your dot or your dart. And so about a 1/4 inch there, you're going to mark it. You can mark it on both sides if you want. It doesn't, you're only going to sew one side. So now we need to transfer this to the other pair of pants. So what I'll do is, because your seam can be on, you can sew from either side, right? But just giving myself just a little bit of room to make a pencil mark. and then put them to the side and try to get the pencil marks transferred. I can see the angle. I mean, there's not other ways to put it on the doll and remeasure and hope that you got it, right. But you want to get this about the same where you're going to start it, so that we can draw that diagonal. Because in this case here, I didn't go straight cut. I wanted more of a boot cut. So we're transferring pencil marks so I can, well, pretty simple, you can see there. That's going to be my seam line. Notice how there's not a lot of seam, and I'll probably cut some of that off too, just to get rid of more of the bulk. But right now we're going to mark the crotch. And again, about a 1/4 inch away from that curve. And if you can see, this is on the curve side. It's fine. You can do, I did a whole pencil line. I didn't need to do that. Now we're going to pin these, and then we'll take it over to the sewing machine. And make sure you do your back stitch, because you don't want these to undo. So do a couple of back stitches at both ends to keep them together. So here we go. I got my pants. I'm going to go ahead and trim off that extra. So we work with really tiny seams here. We're talking about millimeters, a 2-3 millimeter length or width seam, because we're trying so hard to get rid of the bulk. Clothes don't fit right if they're bulky. If you cut through the line of your fray check, you're going to want to go ahead and fray check those seams again, because the seams are so small. If you get any fraying, it'll get to where the thread is, and then the seam line will unravel. Okay, we're going to put the legs on. I'm going to pull them up right where they need to be, and make sure that you look at both sides, not just the waistline. Make sure the pants at the bottom are at that correct hem length. And we're just going to, this is the back, so this is the side that has the curves. So we're just going to kind of tighten it a little bit where we think it'll be when we glue these on, because yeah, they're not removable. So we'll just go ahead and pin that in place. And now we're going to do the dart in the front. And we're going to go ahead and pull that nice and tight. And that pin in the back helps you get it tight. So if you have where you want that seam to be or the closure to be in the back, the front is so much easier. So now we're going to add a diagonal to make that a dart. And then I'm just making sure that's where I want it. The seam is going to be right from the top all the way down to where that seam is that you just did, that small seam. And so I have marked my seam line. And I really only need to mark it on one side, because we're going to put those right sides together. I'm going to pin these other edges out of the way so that I don't accidentally sew them in. And then we're going to join right sides together. And you can pin it if you want. I'd pin it down on the legs, but we're going to go ahead and do that seam line sewn. There we go. So that's what your pants look like right now. We still have one more seam in the crotch, and we want to get those 4 corners to match. And your seam is going to be from right there in the crotch to where the curve is. Now you can make it longer if you want. You just want to make sure you can get the pants on the doll. So if you don't give yourself enough room here, you're not going to be able to put the pants on. You have to rip out the seam. So from there to there, that's what we're going to do. And here we go. Now you notice there might be a little hole in there. If you want, you could put some glue in there. It hasn't really been a problem for me. Okay, now we're going to turn these right side out. And I'm using my skinny fingers to do that. Basically, they're just round beaded pliers. I try not to use anything with teeth when I'm doing stuff like this, because I don't want to leave any impressions on the clothes. Okay, here they are right side out, and I realized I forgot to trim that right there, that seam, that dart. So we need to trim and fray check that. We want it close. We don't want a lot of bulk. So you want to get rid of most of that seam. Give yourself at least 2 to 3 millimeters of a seam allowance left over. And then, quickly we're going to do this. And then of course we have to let that dry, which is kind of annoying because I was on a roll. Okay, when it dried, I went ahead and put the pants on. This is going to be your final fit. I'm going to make sure you get them on nice and snug because we're going to fit that waist. Now this was that stretchy denim, so it's going to be a little different than some other fabrics. Here we go. I'm going to glue right along there. We don't want to put any fittings or fasteners because they're all too bulky. I haven't found anything, even my Velcro that I love is too bulky. So now we're going to pull tight and we're going to go ahead and close that up. It is at a slight angle. If you want, you can trim that so that it's straight in the back, but there you go. That is how you fit a pair of pants for an 8-inch male doll. Okay, and to save us all some video time, this 6-inch male doll is exactly the same. Okay, and to save us all some video time, this 6-inch male doll is exactly the same. Okay, the 6-inch female doll, this is the one, classictvtoys.com. I'm going to use some of that chambray fabric, which is really nice and thin. We're going to go through all the same steps, except that she's sharing these pants with a 6-inch male doll. So her waist and legs are going to be way different than him. So I'm going to get where I want the waistline. And then down at the bottom, you can see these are going to be really too long for her. That's what happens when you have a generic pattern, but that way you only have to buy one pattern and you can fit any doll you want instead of buying a different size one for every doll. Okay, so now I've got an idea of where I want the crotches in place. That's important. And I need to mark where I want to do the hem. And I'll mark it right at the ankle. So there's the joint, mark it at the ankle. Okay, because this is that chambray, which is a really light fabric, I'm going to go ahead and mark, that's where the fold over is going to be. I'm going to do a fold over instead of a fray check. So here I'm marking, I want to make sure I've got, that's where my fold over is going to be. I'm going to trim some of this off, but I'm going to have, because it's thin, I can look like an actual hem and not see the raw edge of the fabric. You don't have to. Nobody will really be able to tell if you fray check it. But I'm going to go ahead and do that. So that means I'm trimming off just enough so that I have about an 1/8 inch fold over, a few millimeters fold over, whatever you're comfortable with. Then I need to transfer this to the other pattern. So I'm going to match right at the crotch. And then I would go ahead and transfer all of those lines like we've done before. Okay, now I'm going to hem the pant leg. I'm not going to do the waistband until everything is sewed up because I don't want lumps in it. So we're going to just do that last. But we do want to go ahead and carefully fold over our pant legs. So there we go. We have hemmed our pant legs. I'm probably doing this a little bit too fast, but it's different when I'm doing videos than when I'm actually doing something for myself. Now we're going to work on just how tight do I want those pants. So I want to put a pair of boots in there, so it's probably a good idea that I actually put some boots on. And so I'm just using a pair of the cowboy boots that I made. I haven't dedicated them, well, at the point of this video, I hadn't dedicated them to anything. So that helps right there. Put the boot on and then you can get how wide it needs to be. I didn't do that with the boys because they're fairly simple, but fitting the girls can be a little bit more challenging because we want it tight, but we want to put on boots. So putting on the boots instead of going to the ankle is a much better idea. Okay, here I'm just transferring lines. We've transferred lines before. Once I get those lines transferred for the seam, I'll go ahead and sew that. Now I know I'm going to have to trim off a lot of this, so I'll go ahead and do my fray check. Do your fray check. I put it right on or to the side of the seams, and I'm going to go ahead and let that dry. Okay, so we've got the pants on, and what I'm checking for is to see if I need to dart the sides. I know I'm going to dart the front, a little bit of a dart in the back, but I'm just checking to see, okay, if I pull that tight in the front, is that going to be tight enough around the waist, or am I going to have to do additional darts? Now, fortunately for her, it was fine. I didn't have to do more darts, and but you want to check that because you can do 2 additional darts on the side for the hips, which we'll do for the 8-inch doll. But as you can see, she's pretty much the same as the rest of the guys. The only difference being right now we're doing a fold over hem instead of a fray check hem. And here we go, transferring lines. We've done this before. We'll go ahead and get that sewed. And then once we have it sewed up, the fray check is dry. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that extra right in there. And we're going to go ahead and get rid of that extra right there. Right? We don't want all that bulk. And of course, that's going to need to be fray checked as well now that we've cut it. So we're going to work on the waistline now. I had a little thread there that I wanted to get rid of because sometimes even with fray check, you can get threads. So now we're going to do the waistline. I'm going to do a little bit at a time. I'm doing one side. I'm going to do that fold over onto that line. There you go. Now here I'm going to split that. So I got half on either side. And that's going to be a tricky bit. Right there. Fold that open. Get that glued. And again, only because this is thin enough I can get away with it. Would not work on regular denim because it's way too thick. And we want to make sure we don't have any wrinkles or anything in that waistline. But there's your pants. We're going to go ahead and flip those right side out. Now it's time to do the final fitting and get those pants on her. Now I'm using a stylus to tuck that shirt in. We want to tuck it down. And we're fitting it over the shirt because that's the way you're supposed to wear it in most cases in Western. Not always. I mean, there's some shirts that don't, but usually you're required in like rodeo and barrel racing to have your shirt tucked in. So here we go, gluing up, and we're going to go nice and tight to get tight around the hips. That's important. A lot of those Chinese clothes don't fit tight around the hips like this. I'm using a stylus to get right in there. And there you go. Those are a little bit hip huggers. I'm not really impressed with the doll, but she's wearing a pair of pants now. Okay, so I'm sure you've all been waiting for the 8-inch doll, who's going to be the toughest one to fit. We're doing exactly the same thing. We're fitting for the waistline. We're fitting for the hemline. Hemline is really tiny on this. Didn't have to cut anything away, so I'm going to go ahead and hem the pants. And then I need to mark for the waistline. I don't want to go through this too quickly, but you've seen all of this. And because I'm using the chambray, I can do the fold over for the hem instead of using the fray check hem. And I should not have hemmed the top. Let's just fold it over. Okay, so it's just folded over. I'm going to mark it with a pencil. Later on, it makes it easier to do the hem if I know where I need to fold it at. Okay, she's got a really long skirt, and I'm trying to decide if I want the shirt to be outside or inside the pants. At this point, I really liked the way the shirt came out. I kind of wanted it to be on the outside. And then later on, I decided, no, that's not really Western. Won't go good with chaps. Okay, so here's where, just like before, we're going to try and do the fitting of the leg. And we have to decide, where do I want to put it? So let's say I'm going to put I got those really fancy boots. I want them on the outside. I worked really hard on those. They look good. So she's going to get my good old cowboy boots I made, and I'm going to tuck the pants into the boots so I can show them off. Okay, putting down my stitching line, and then of course transfer it to the other pair of pants, and then we can sew up the seam. Okay, I got those seams sewed up, but now I'm going to do a couple extra darts to fit that hip. And the darts are about 1/4 inch. And this is the time to do the darts. Now, later on, you want to make the darts bigger, you can. But I just did some 1/4-inch darts on the sides, like that. Did my fray check. Went ahead and got rid of the extra. All right, now we could see that just doing that really helped fit the hips. And we're going to do like we did with all the others. In the back, where the curves are, we're going to go ahead and do a pin. So they fit, right? They would fit if they were tight. And then we're going to pull really tight that front. And just those little darts on the side have alleviated a lot of problems. And you have to do it on this 8-inch doll unless you do something to get rid of that tiny waistline. And it's an unrealistic waistline, but you know. Okay, so we went ahead and did that seam for the waistline. And of course, we do need to fray check it. And then that little piece right there, I'm just going to glue it instead of sewing that little itty bitty bit because it's about 1/4 of an inch to finish up the crotch. So I'll go ahead and just glue that. Some preparation for doing the waist hem. I'm going to go ahead and glue down that seam right there in the very back. You could do it on the darts too if you left enough fabric. But we want to eliminate as much of the bulk as we can. And I wouldn't do darts in regular denim. The chambray was really nice to work with. I really want to find it in a dark blue denim color. I don't know, these days the stores just aren't carrying all the things that they used to. It's hard to find things. Okay, now that we've got the waistband hemmed, we're going to do another final check. And then we're going to go ahead and glue these things on. And this is why we make clothes permanent. Now I'm going to pull it tight to make sure it fits. But if you notice I got a little funky overlap there, I'm going to go ahead and not glue that flap down. Glue everything else down because I'm going to trim that so that it's straight in the back. See? Trim that excess nice and straight. There we go. Put down her shirt and she's done. So for the felt doll, she fits just like she's a guy because I made her that way. So I don't have to do any funky pleats or darts or anything. Well, I want to thank you for spending time with me today. Like, subscribe, tell all your friends about the channel, and you have yourself a really good day.